Imagine finding footprints in the snow leading to your house, but none leading away. Now imagine realizing they have been living above your head for days. The date is April 4th, 1922. A mechanic named Albert Hofner arrives at a remote farmstead known as Hinterkaifeck. It lies hidden deep within the Bavarian woods, about an hour's drive north of Munich. The farm is silent, too silent. Albert is there to fix an engine, but no one greets him. He bangs on the windows, he shouts. Only the farm dog barks, tied up near the barn, frantic and starving. Albert does his work, surrounded by an eerie stillness, feeling eyes on the back of his neck. After hours of working alone, he leaves. He tells the neighbors in the village that the Grubers have vanished. This triggers a search, and what the neighbors find in the barn will stain the history of Germany forever. This is not just a story about murder. It is a story about paranoia, isolation, and the terrifying realization that the monster you fear is already inside your house. Welcome to the GasLight Archives. To understand the death of the Gruber family, we must first understand their life. Andreas Gruber, the 63-year-old patriarch, was not a well-liked man. He was wealthy, but he was cruel. He was known to beat his wife, Kazelia, and rumors swirled through the village, dark rumors, that Andreas was in an incestuous relationship with his widowed daughter, Victoria. Victoria Gabriel was a 35-year-old widow. Her husband had died in the Great War. She had 2 children, little Kazelia, who was 7 years old, and the baby, Joseph, who was only 2. The village whispered that baby Joseph was actually the son of Andreas, the grandfather. This was a house of secrets, a house of tension. The farm itself was isolated, cut off from the world by a dense forest known as the Witch's Wood. And 6 months before the end, the darkness began to close in. Their maid suddenly packed her bags and fled. She ran to the village, terrified. She told anyone who would listen that the house was haunted. She heard voices in the walls, footsteps in the attic when no one was there. She refused to stay another night. Andreas Gruber laughed at her. He didn't believe in ghosts, but he should have listened, because something was in the house. March 1922. Winter was refusing to let go. Snow blanketed the farm. A few days before the massacre, Andreas went out to check his land. And there, in the fresh white snow, he saw them. Footprints. 2 distinct sets of boot tracks emerging from the dense, dark forest and leading directly to the farmhouse. Andreas frowned. He followed the tracks to the door. He looked around the house. He checked the perimeter. And then, his blood ran cold. There were no footprints leading back to the forest. Whoever had walked to the house had never walked away. Andreas searched the barn. He searched the shed. He found no one. But that night, the family heard it again. Creak, creak, creak. Footsteps, directly above their heads, in the attic. Andreas grabbed his gun and climbed the ladder. Nothing, just dust and straw. But the strangeness didn't stop. A set of house keys vanished from the kitchen table. A newspaper from Munich, a paper the family never subscribed to, appeared on the porch. Someone was playing a game with them. Someone was watching them eat, watching them sleep, waiting for the perfect moment. On March 31st, a Friday, a new maid arrived, Maria Baumgartner. She unpacked her bags, unpacked her bedsheets. She had no idea that she had just walked into her own grave. The exact sequence of events has been reconstructed by forensic detectives. It is the evening of March 31st. Night has fallen. The farm is pitch black. One by one, for reasons we still don't understand, the family members were lured out to the barn. Perhaps they heard a noise. Perhaps the cattle were restless. First, the old man, Andreas. As he stepped into the doorway connecting the house to the stable, a figure stepped out of the shadows. The weapon was a mattock, a heavy pickaxe used for digging roots. One blow. Then came his wife, Cecilia. She was struck down next to her husband. Then, the daughter, Victoria. And then, the most heartbreaking of all, little 7-year-old Cecilia. Forensics showed that she did not die instantly. She lay in the straw, next to the bodies of her mother and grandparents, tearing her own hair out in terror for hours before she died. The killer, calm and methodical, then walked into the farmhouse. He found the new maid, Maria, in her bedroom. He killed her instantly. And finally, he walked to the pram where 2-year-old Joseph was sleeping. And with one heavy swing, he silenced the house forever. 6 bodies, total silence. But the killer did not leave. This is the detail that keeps detectives awake at night. The murders happened on Friday. The bodies were not found until Tuesday. For 4 days, the killer stayed on the farm. Neighbors reported seeing smoke rising from the chimney on Saturday and Sunday. When the police finally arrived, they found remnants of a meal eaten in the kitchen. Bread was cut. Meat was eaten. The cattle in the barn had been fed. The killer had milked the cows. He had kept the fire going to stay warm. Imagine the psychology of this person. Sleeping in the beds of the people he just killed. Eating their food, while their corpses lay rotting just a few meters away in the barn. He wasn't in a rush. He felt at home. When the police finally searched the attic, they found the missing keys, and they found a pile of straw, flattened down, near a hole in the floorboards. Through that hole, you could see directly into the kitchen. He had been living there for days, possibly weeks, watching them, studying their routine, waiting. The investigation was a disaster. Crowds trampled the crime scene. The police were desperate. They even did something unthinkable. They cut off the heads of the victims and sent them to clairvoyants in Munich, hoping the psychics could identify the killer. The heads were never returned. They were lost in the chaos of World War II. The bodies were buried headless. Many suspects were named. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, a neighbor who had a romantic history with Victoria. He seemed to know the layout of the bodies before the police even entered the barn. But no proof was ever found. In 1923, the farm of Hinterkaifeck was demolished. The locals wanted to erase the evil from the land. Today, only a shrine stands in the field. But the mystery remains. Who was the man in the attic? Why did he feed the cattle after slaughtering the family? The footprints in the snow led one way. And in a way, the killer never really left. He remains there, in the cold history of a case that will never be solved.